Yeah, man. And it's me again. I am your boy. I am your boy. I'm your teacher. I'm your host. I am Danny, the creator, and you're here tuned in again for another episode of the Back of the Class show. And I'd like to say a big thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, I'm not going to be here for long. This is actually just an intro for the episode, and I'm going to dip afterwards because I am going to go see Barbie finally. It took weeks for me to get here because like I wanted to see with my friend. She cancelled. I wanted to see with my other friend. She cancelled as well. It happens. It happens. Everyone's like having a busy schedule. So like I decided I'm just gonna go see it by myself. So this episode is basically going to be a review on Barbie, more or less, or like whatever it is that happens in the movie. I'm just gonna talk about it a little bit. And like I'm actually happy that this delay happened because now I don't have to be worried about like giving spoilers because yeah, hopefully y'all have watched it already. It's been out I think 2-3 weeks already. And by the time the episode is actually out, it's probably been out even longer. So essentially, well, spoiler alert in advance for Barbie. I will be talking about the movie. I will be giving my thoughts and opinion and a little bit of discourse around the movie as well. Before I go, well, I will be back in like a second for you guys. But essentially, before the next segment of the show, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Click on the subscribe button. You can subscribe on YouTube, on Spotify, and Apple Podcast. Just subscribe to wherever you get to wherever you get the podcast from. And outside of that, interact with the post, leave a like, leave a comment, leave a pink heart or something. I don't know, just do something and share the show with people if you do enjoy it. And follow the socials at Back OT Class Show for the podcast. And you can follow me personally at Demi underscore the creator for the podcast. And also, I think this episode might take a little bit of a vlog style, I guess. Because, yeah, I'm gonna, like, after this, I'm gonna, like, go take a fit video downstairs or whatever. And that would be, like, the next segment. Just, like, show up the outfit, you know, like the pink in the cardigan. Apparently it's called, I call it a sweater for whatever reason, but yeah, the pink in the cardigan, you know, some of the jewelry, you know, the shoes. Yeah, basically just like a quick fit thing. I wanted to do a get ready with me, but like, I just couldn't be bothered because like after this kind of like a sad day. But anyways, that's besides the point. You'll get that in like the next segment, and afterwards I might like start recording the episode right after I watch the movie. So like as I'm on my way home, I might just like, yeah, because I'm probably gonna record on my phone, just like hi guys, and this is what I think about the movie while I'm on my way home. But if I don't do that, well then I might be just back here on my bed and giving the episode. But yeah, with that being said, I look forward to watching the movie. I've actually been looking forward to this for weeks, and I'm very excited, and I hope I enjoyed. I hope that you guys enjoyed it, and I hope that I'm able to actually do the episode today and not tomorrow. But yeah, with that being said, I will see you guys in a second for you. But like, I'll see you guys later. Bye. Okay, so outfit check, outfit check. Let's start with the necklaces. Four. I have one with heart and just a silver one, and two I stole from my friends. I have like two pair of earrings and yeah, the cake thingy and another one. Rings. I have the snake John and this pink John bracelet, a little tote bag from Scissors tour, and pink cardigan, white t-shirt. Like I told you guys, peep game, peep game. Air Forces with some pink details. You probably cannot see that right now. I have like some purple socks on, and what can I say? I am fully prepared for this, John. Fully dressed, and let's get it. So I saw the Barbie movie, and literally it was a 10 out of 10. I would definitely recommend if you haven't seen it yet. So go, 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 go. But yeah, I promised like a little vlog. I didn't do that, but here's a little vlog. I'm gonna go to the arcade now, and before I head home to record the episode. So yeah, well, I'll see you guys later. Bye. Yeah, wait. Do I need to do that? No, I actually don't. Okay, so I'm back. Well, I'll be honest. I kind of wanted to like pretend like I recorded it yesterday because like I did. So what happened was I saw the movie and I went to the arcade because like I was trying to avoid coming back home because I was going for like an emotional situation. Yeah, and I was trying to avoid being alone at home and whatnot. But yeah, so I went to the arcade. You probably saw the video as well because I did take a little video. I don't know if I'm going to include it or not, but like that's besides the point. I went to the arcade, went for like a long ass walk, went to the park, chilled at the park a little bit, was on the phone with a friend of mine, doing some gossip, you know how it be. And then I got home. By the time I was home, it was like kind of dark, and like I said before, like I don't have a light. I just use the sunlight as my light. But anyways, the movie was absolutely fire. Genuinely speaking, like a whole 10 out of 10. I definitely would recommend that you guys do go see it if you haven't yet. It's a 10 out of 10 and I absolutely loved it. But like now let's get into the discourse. Let's get into the movie review. So before the movie, obviously there's been a lot of discourse on the internet. I did try to avoid all of it. And I did a good job actually. I was very proud of myself because like if you know me, you know that I like spoilers, but like I avoided spoilers for the Barbie movie and actually did a good job doing that. And except for one part, I did fall into like Alan discourse on the character Alan. So yeah, again, I already gave a spoiler warning before, but like spoiler warning if you haven't seen Barbie or if you're not interested in listening to discourse before you see the movie, well, this is probably not the episode for you. Just leave a like or like save it and come back later. But yeah, I fell into some some discourse about the character Alan and who he might represent and whatnot. And I didn't realize it was from the Barbie movie because like I had no idea what was gonna happen. I didn't get any of the plot, but then I realized oh shit, it's from Barbie, and I left. But essentially, there's been a bit of discourse about the character Alan and what he might represent, and a lot of people have stated that they think Alan represents queer men, and I personally find that to be very interesting. I actually did speak to a friend of mine. I spoke to someone yesterday last fuck. Okay. I was talking to someone yesterday, like I was texting someone last night, about them because like I was supposed to see it with her at some point, but like shit happened that she couldn't pull through with, and yeah, whatever. Well, actually, no, I think shit happened. We just weren't in the mood to see a movie, and it was just like whatever. That's besides the point. That's besides the point. So I was talking to her yesterday, and like we're having a discourse about Barbie because she'd been seen it. She was gonna see it the second time with me, but like she'd been seen it. And so we were supposed to have like discourse, and she asked me a question. She was like, "What do I think about the character Alan?" And that got my gears turning, and I pretty much came up with like, yeah, I find it interesting that a lot of people see Alan as being a queer coded character when in the movie, or at least in my perspective, like from what I saw, there was no direct link to queerness, to queerness whatsoever, like which could be a double, like maybe a double entendre type of situation. Like it could be the fact that you can be queer without exhibiting stereotypically queer attributes, but for a movie that kind of like leans on this on like that leans heavily into stereotypicality, I would find that like an interesting twist because like literally the main character is stereotypical Barbie, and then there's other Barbies and other Kens, and like their definition is literally what they are, and like they act according to what their titles are. So I find it interesting that people saw this character Alan as being queer coded because Alan in the movie, if you haven't seen it, but Alan in the movie was essentially the only male doll, was the only quote unquote Ken doll. Because yeah, the movie is kind of divided like Barbies and Kens. Again, I don't know if you have seen it, then you definitely know what I'm talking about. And I apologize if you haven't seen it, and if you do get a bit confused, it's kind of hard to like give full detail. Yeah, but anyways, so Alan was the only male doll, was the only male character, well not character, only male doll in Barbie Land that wasn't a Ken. Every other male character was a Ken. It was literally filled with Kens, and then there is Alan. And I find it interesting that people look at Alan and they see queer coding, because I think to some extent it does comment, it does show how we as society view men under the patriarchy, because the whole the plot of the movie was essentially this Barbie Land, and Barbie Land is the perfect feminist utopia. So women run everything, women have their own property, women live in their own houses, they're in charge of themselves and have full autonomy and whatnot. And the Kens are just wherever the Kens are, and the Kens exist, yeah, to basically seek attention from Barbies, which is another commentary that I would give later on in the episode. So then they go to the real world. Ken, stereotypical Barbies, Ken discovers the patriarchy and brings the patriarchy back to Barbie Land, and by the time Barbie, well, stereotypical Barbie gets back to Barbie land, it's a whole mess. It's like, yeah, it's given patriarchy quite literally, and it's a whole mess and whatnot, and like this. Yeah, but in all of this, in all of the situation when the patriarchy was installed in Barbie land and it became can Kingdom land, whatever, and it became whatever it became. Alan was the only male figure that lived in said fictional land that was supportive towards the Barbies, and I think this is like a commentary, like Alan represents men who are supportive towards women and try their best to like understand feminism and deconstruct the patriarchy and be, well, essentially try to lead towards a fair and equal world, or a more feminist led world. And I think it's interesting that as a society, as people who have seen this movie, like the majority of people look at Alan and immediately what they see is a queer man, because I think to some extent people cannot fathom, people cannot imagine a man being supportive or being empathetic towards women and marginalized groups without that man being queer, and especially when it's a white man. Because I did also mention yesterday to my friend that I think if it was a black man, that would have also added a different layer of introspection. And I think this character was intentionally, like I said, this movie very much leaned into like stereotypicality. It was very blatant with like stereotypes and like what, yeah, what is expected by society, what we view. So like Alan as being one of the characters without a fully fleshed out character, without a fully fleshed out description of what and who he is. Like the whole thing of the whole Alan's like, yeah, who am, like there was this sub layer of like, who is Alan? And I think that was like intentional to like get people thinking and get people talking, because like the movie was very much uh a movie that was very much a commentary on not just Barbie but like also feminism and the patriarchy and society as a general. And I think it's interesting that people leaned into the idea of Alan being queer instead of having any sort of thought at the possibility that Alan could be a cishet man who just happens to understand the necessity English language, Jesus. So yeah. So I think it's interesting that people lean straight into like, he has to be queer, because I think to some extent we just, as a society, we just cannot view a cishet man as being capable of having empathy and having the ability, the emotional ability to understand the necessities for feminism and for equality in yeah, on the gender's sex spectrum. And I think that's just interesting. I think like Alan was intentionally left somewhat nuanced, somewhat unanswered, somewhat unknown to spark thought, because to some extent we do, sorry, excuse me, because to some extent we do view men as incapable of having empathy whatsoever, and we also view men as being, yeah, as essentially being quote unquote evil, because that is what the patriarchy has instilled in us. Like that is a patriarchal concept of viewing men as bad unless they they are good. So essentially we view men as being bad unless proven otherwise. And that's like a whole patriarchy thing with like, oh yeah, the white knight complex and whatnot. Like as men, you're supposed to like protect women from other men because men are inherently evil and you have to be the exception and whatnot. There's like a whole thing into this. Honestly, I feel like this episode does need to be longer than 20 minutes, but I will try my best to keep it under 30, because there is quite a lot that I think I would like to explore. I might make it like a two-part type of situation, but yeah, anyways, we'll figure that out. I'll figure that out later. But yeah, the main theme of the movie that I would like to, it's like, I think it does such a great job at criticizing the concept of Barbie and the concept of like perfection, because to some extent Barbie does represent like the perfect woman, because Barbie was created to like to spread the idea, to spread the fantasy that you can be like, women can be anything and everything that they want to be, but it doesn't do this in like a human way, because yeah, obviously Barbie is a doll and Barbie is perfect. Like early on in the movie there was commentary on cellulite as soon as Barbie got some shape, because like she was becoming real. Again, go see the movie if you haven't. So like she was becoming a real person, and so she was developing cellulite, like her legs literally turned flat, like not on the heels, like she turned flat. And Barbie is the beauty, is to some extent the beauty standard, like the stereotypical Barbie is the beauty standard. And so she was starting to lose that standard. So then I think like it's interesting to see that even in the idea that, yeah, as a woman you can be anything you want to be, you can be the president, you can be an astronaut, you can be a doctor, you can be this, you can be that, you can be literally anything you put your mind to. Even in all of that, there is still the sub context of, but you cannot be human, you cannot be a person. Yes, you can be everything, but you cannot be a person. Because like that was like my first thought, is like the movie did eventually like explain, go see the movie again, but like that was like my initial thought at the start, close to the start of the movie, when Barbie started like have gaining human features like cellulite, which is very natural to women and men as well. Just it's a natural human part of existence. And so like that was claimed to be a flaw, and that was like the first thing that Barbie was like, oh my goodness. And it's very interesting, because like in Barbie land, women are literally everything. Like everything is run by women. Women do all the labor, the yeah, everything, the thinking, the labor, they just do everything. And I think that was like an interesting commentary, that with everything, yeah, even with the introduction of feminism, because and Barbie, because like Barbie at some point was like a key figure in like feminism, and also like the queer movement. Like it was a key figure, because like it was just showing people that everything is possible as long as you work for it. But like I think it didn't do Mattel's, because there's a differentiation of Mattel's Barbie and Greta's Barbie, but like yeah, the classic Mattel's Barbie. And I think that's just like a very interesting thing, and I think I like that part, because it shows, it allows for humanity, it allows for like flaws, because of course people are not going to be perfect, and I think to some extent we've lost that idea, because like I think at the root of it, to some extent, the idea of feminism was that women are people too, and women, because they're people, they have ambitions that go beyond just men. They have ambitions that go beyond just like being a wife, being a mother. But I think we kind of separated, or like we kind of like drifted away from like women are people, because we leaned a little bit too much into the women have ambitions. And I also think the movie was a commentary on capitalism, and how capitalism just like fucks up everything, because then we leaned too much into the idea of like women have ambitions, women can be separated from men, and that slowly and surely leaned closer and closer towards the capitalist dream. And capitalism doesn't allow for humanity. Capitalism doesn't allow people to be who they are. And so because of that, because so capitalism combined with consumerism, because consumerism fuels very much into the Eurocentric beauty standard, and things like that. And I also think this movie was very interesting, especially watching it as a black person, because I was like, a lot of the issues that were brought up, a lot of like the things that I noticed were not necessarily uh like a lot of these things, a lot of the like issues with the beauty standard were very much Eurocentric issues, Eurocentric problems, and things like that. And it was just interesting to see that, wow, okay, like we did get diversity. I was very happy that like there was the Barbie president was a black woman, which I absolutely loved. There was plus size people, both Ken dolls and Barbie dolls. And I think it was very interesting, like a movie that is intentionally and obviously supposed to like be diverse. It was diverse, but I think some of the issues that were addressed were quite Eurocentric, or like white woman leaning. Because to some extent, like the idea of like, yeah, women should be separate from men, and like they're their own people, and they can work as hard as they want to, they can do whatever they want to. I think it doesn't fully flesh out, it doesn't fully take into account like the intersectionality that is women. Because like, for instance, back in the day, when I say back in the day, I mean like back in the dark ages. So like, yeah, black women weren't necessarily housewives. Black women did have to work. Black women never had that phase of like, oh yeah, you're a woman, you cannot work. But like, they were limited to the jobs that they could do, obviously. But they did have to work. Like at no point in, because like the black household couldn't be sustained based on the solely on the black man's earnings. Like that was impossible, still is kind of impossible. But yeah, but that was very much more impossible back in the day. So And so like the idea of like feminism for a black woman wouldn't necessarily to be like working my back off. Like to some black women, the idea of like feminism is I want to be a woman of leisure, whatever however you pronounce the word, a woman of leisure. I want to just be able to exist, like just exist, be taken care of and whatnot. And I don't really care what people think about that. It's not my place to speak on that. It's not your place to speak on that. It's their place to speak on that, and you can disagree and just choose not to fuck with them if you disagree, and like just find your person. But that's besides the point again. So I think that it's very interesting that like, but I think to some extent at the end of it, it does kind of like touch on well, not necessarily on that topic per se, but it does touch a little bit on like the fact that you can just be anything, even if that's a regular person, even if that's just like a regular person. But like there was no like blatant call of like you can be anything, even if what you want to be is dependent on a man. But yeah, but I think that would have been a nice addition, a nice touch of like, yeah, black women never necessarily had the whole issue of like, yeah, they were just stuck being housewives. Their issue has been like they've had to work a shitload of times more than the white woman and whatnot, and yada 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 and blah blah blah. And like just touch on like as much as possible. But like also it was a 2 hour movie. There's only so much time to touch on only so many topics. Another thing that I really liked about the movie was the commentary on the patriarchy and how the patriarchy creates codependency between men and women. And I think it does such a great job at this, especially when it comes to the reflection of who's a man under the patriarchy. So essentially Ken, because to some extent, as much as Barbie is like progressive, to some extent Barbie does lean into patriarchal concepts like perfection in the way women appear, the beauty standard, and it also leans into the patriarchy for the Ken dolls in the sense that men do exist in a patriarchal world to serve women as well. There's a lot of undertones to that, but like it does this in such a what's the word in such a subliminal, I guess, like in such a hidden, well, not hidden, English language again, but I guess you guys understand what I'm trying to say. But it does so in such a in like an underlying tone, like men do exist to serve women to some extent, because as we could see in the movie, all Ken wanted was Barbie's attention. It wasn't until like towards the end of the movie where Ken was like, well, where there was like a realization, or like Barbie told Ken like, hey, you have to find who you are outside of Barbie, because you are also allowed to be who you are outside of the female gaze. And I think that was a very important, like very good commentary, because I feel like a lot of men need to understand this. Because like as much as there's like male empowerment sides of like the internet and whatnot, I feel like we don't have, as men, we don't have like this space of like men should be men outside of women, because even the male spaces that we have, i.e. the red pillars and shit like that, men don't exist outside of the female gaze. Like I heard something once somewhere. Honestly, it could have just been me talking to myself. I promise I'm not schizophrenic. But I heard something once somewhere, and essentially the statement, or like the quote is that you as a man, you don't exist to attract women. Your existence as a man is the purpose of your existence as a man is not to attract women. And that's something that the patriarchy doesn't allow men to understand or to realize, because a lot of men do what they do not for their own happiness, not for their own sense of fulfillment. They do it because it's what they are expected to do, and it's what they expect to attract women in return. So essentially men find fulfillment in the attraction of women, but that is not the way to go around things. And I think this is a very good book out of feminism that men can pick out, because women as well, under the patriarchy, their existence was to attract men. Their existence was to eventually be a partner to a man and to be his wife, to be the mother of his kids and whatnot. And for men were to be the husband to a woman, the father to the woman's kids, and that was like the whole thing. And like I think it's a good commentary that Barbie is allowed to be Barbie without Ken, and Barbie should be Barbie without Ken. And Ken is allowed to be Ken without Barbie, and Ken should be Ken without Barbie. So we should all be individuals outside of the opposite gender, or outside of whoever it is that we're attracted to. And I think that's also, I think like it's also Well, I mean, to be fair, it does, because it does. It is a commentary on the patriarchy. It wouldn't be as queer informed as otherwise, because yeah, queerness under the patriarchy is a bit messy. But yeah, I do find that's also what I find interesting, like the idea of like, okay, so like we keep viewing things as like this duality, man woman, but it's like, what if Ken is attracted to Ken? What if Barbie is attracted to Barbie? Like what is the situation then? Like, can Barbie exist outside of Barbie, or like outside of Barbie, and should she exist outside of Barbie? But I would like to like make it a little bit more nuanced and a little bit more intersectional, and say that essentially we as people should be able to exist outside of the attraction of the people that we could be attracted to. So essentially, if you're attracted to men, you should exist without wanting to attract other men. If you're attracted to women, you should be able to exist without wanting to attract women. And if you're attracted to non-binary people, you should be able to exist without having to attract non-binary people. Essentially, our fulfillment and our purpose in life should not be the eventual attraction of others and the eventual formation of a quote-unquote family. It should just be finding self-fulfillment outside of people, and then having people be additions to our fulfillment. That is my takeaway personally, because I feel like we lose that because of the patriarchy and capitalism, and like the whole mess that is society. I think those, like, yeah, I think this is my biggest takeaway, is that we can be who we are outside of everybody else. And if there are people outside of who we are that can add and bring supplements to what we have, that is all great and dandy. But if they are not, we should also be able to find happiness with who we are. Because as much as there's like 8 billion people or whatnot, there is no guarantee that you will have people in your immediate surrounding. Like, yeah, there is the internet, and the internet does make things a lot better, but also you need to understand that the chances are still quite low. Otherwise you will have to settle, which is another conversation for another day. I don't think there wasn't really much of that in the Barbie movie. Like, yeah, keep this solely to a Barbie movie review. Another part that I really like, I like the Ken song. I like the way that the choreography told a certain story, a certain narrative. Because we could see at the start of the movie there was like essentially beef, there was clash, there was friction between the Kens, which I think is an allegory, is a commentary on toxic masculinity and the excessive need for competition to view yourself as masculine, or like the excessive need of competition in traditional masculinity. You know, I have to be the best, I have to be this, I have to be that. Like, no, you can be mediocre. But like that's besides the point. So like I like the way the song went, because like the whole idea of like this part of the movie was that, yeah, so like this was after the patriarchy was brought to Barbie Land and it became Ken Kingdom, whatever. They were gonna have an election, they were, yeah, whatever, and then the Barbies in an effort to take back Barbie Land, they essentially played on the male ego. They they would be with someone, and then like incite competition between that Ken and another Ken, and so essentially it's just like playing on the ego of men, which I think it's actually a good commentary on two things. I think because like, so a lot of Nigerians, if you are listening, probably know this already, but like there's pretty much a sort of like a saying, kind of like a saying of like men rule with strength, with physical strength and abilities and whatnot, but the woman who is intelligent, the woman who is cunning, she rules with what we would nowadays call manipulation. She rules by being able to trick and control the man. And I found that very interesting. Like that was essentially what was happening. Like the women were able to outthink the man, because like the man was so focused on attracting women and on a certain quote unquote dominance, that the women were able to, or like the Barbies were able to key and utilize this. I wouldn't call it a flaw, but I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of a flaw. You know, there's a saying that the most inflated egos are the easiest to bruise. So it's like, yeah, I'll call a big ego a flaw. But yeah, the Barbies were able to play on the egos of the Kens to manipulate them into fighting each other, and so they could take back Barbie Land. And I think this is a very good commentary on like on manipulation as well, because like a lot of the time I hate the English language so much. A lot of the time we do comment, and like we do view the manipulation that men do perform, because men do manipulate 100%. Niggas is manipulative. But then we sometimes ignore that manipulation isn't solely a male issue, because I think we have gotten very comfortable with gendering issues, which is also, I think, problematic, because like that takes away, yeah, that takes away the allowance for individuality and whatnot. But like, yeah, and I think that was a nice comment, because like when they utilized manipulation to take back the kingdom, but also at the same time that kind of backfired. And I think this is a commentary on the red pill movement and like the manosphere and whatnot. In a sense, like the way as the movie progressed, as that section of the movie, as the dance progressed, it went from a situation of like the men fighting against each other, but because they did have a quote unquote war. It was very funny actually. They had a war and they were fighting against each other for the attraction of women, which is literally every war. Well, not every war, but like a lot of wars that have happened were, yeah, for women. But anyways, because niggas is stupid, men are just weird, man. Men are just weird. But yeah, so like it started off as a fight between the Kens, but as the dance and whatever progressed slowly, they kind of found unity, and they found a sense of brotherhood. They were like, wait a minute, why are we fighting against each other? And they kind of became friends. Now this happens quite a bit, and usually at this point, I like to call. I think this is a forking point, because now there's like the road splits into two, and I think the movie does a good job in highlighting this, because at the very first instance, once the Kens got to this point of their quote unquote beef or relationship or brotherhood or whatever, where they were fighting over the Barbies, and then they realized, wait, why are we fighting about them? And they realized that, oh shit, they manipulated us into fighting each other. So at this point, at the very first, they picked the, I'll call it the right, which I would like to, you know, indicate and like the cheeky with it, the right, which is supposed to be the right wing, the red pill side of the thing. So like they took the right path, and the path on the right, not the right path, the path on the right, because I know your niggas think. So they took the path on the right, which essentially led to hating women and wanting to go fight women and wanting to like get revenge on women, which I think very much encompasses the idea of the red pill movement, of like how, because they've been done dirty by women at some point in life, which again, I am not trying to invalidate your trauma. Like if you have been hurt by a woman and whatnot, like your response to trauma is valid, but it's also like go seek therapy. But like, yeah, your trauma is valid, your response to trauma is valid, but like you don't have the right to hurt other people simply because they hurt you, or someone who's like them in whatever way hurt you. Like you're not allowed that. That is taking things too very much too far. But yeah, we're essentially like the whole red pill movement's idea of like, I'm gonna get money, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna be that nigga, and then these women are gonna want me, and I can reject them or I can do whatever I want. So like I feel like that was a commentary towards that aspect of things, or like of how society works at the moment, the patriarchy and whatnot. Like that's a commentary on that. But then I like the fact that after the Kens go on that path, uh stereotypical Ken, I would call him, or like the main Ken, was somehow able to like revert back. So he got in touch with his emotions. Essentially, he started crying. Like he realized that, wait, I don't actually want revenge on women. What I actually want is your attention and whatnot. This was before the whole like realization that he can exist and he should exist outside of wanting her attention. So then he was like, wait, I'm not doing this because I hate you. Like this is just a reaction. This is a response to quote unquote a bad situation, a trauma response and whatnot. And then we were able to like take a different path and take what I would like to call the path on the left, to healing, to like finding yourself, because again, you exist outside of the, as a man, you exist outside of the attraction of women. You don't exist to be attracted to be attractive to women. Like no, like you exist to be happy in who you are, and you should decenter yourself as a man from the idea of woman, because that is such a patriarchal lie that is low-key needed to feed into capitalism and to keep capitalism working. So yeah, so I think to keep it in a nutshell, to like keep it short, because like I don't want the episode to be too long. I might make a part two, I might not. I'm not very sure yet. And also, by the time this episode is out, I don't know if Barbie would still be in the cinemas because, like, yeah, I have some other things scheduled before this episode. But yeah, but I hope that my commentary, you guys were able to understand it to some extent. And I also do know that my commentary is heavily focused on men and under the patriarchy, and that is because yeah, I am a nigger, and I would very much like men to become better and like to deconstruct the patriarchy. And I hope that yeah, the men who listen to this are able to like pick one or two things, because yeah, and also it's like I am not necessarily an expert on women's issues or women's perspectives on the patriarchy, so like I can only share what I've heard from women, but at the same time, I haven't necessarily spoken a lot about like the Barbie movie with other women because like I only just saw it yesterday. So yeah, this is just my perspective as a man on the movie Barbie. And if yeah, please feel free to share your commentaries. Please feel free to share your discourse. And yeah, let's have a conversation. Let's have conversations. And honestly, if I do have a lot of conversations about this with people, I might just make another an extension episode to this at some point, or maybe a couple of videos or whatnot, or a couple of TikTok videos or like something. I don't know. But yeah, so yeah, that's my commentary on the Barbie movie. Well, at least some of my commentary on the movie. It was an amazing movie. I had such a great time, and I absolutely loved it. If you haven't seen it, please go see it. Well, I don't know if it's in the cinemas when this episode's out, but like, yeah, see it when you get the chance or whatnot, or if you have the chance and all of that. And yeah, with that being said, let's wrap this up. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Spotify channel, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever it is that you get the show on. Subscribe, and also leave a rating, and comments and likes, and just interact with me. Let's have a Barbie discourse. I actually might fuck around and do an Instagram live or something, and let's have a discourse on Barbie on Instagram live or some shit. And yeah, follow the socials at Back OT Class Show on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Follow me personally at Dami underscore the creator on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And like always, thank you very much for tuning in. I love every one of you, and you guys are the best for tuning in. And I absolutely love the support that I have been getting. And with that being said, I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Bye.